My friend Britt has decided to start her own sourdough journey, but she was confused about how to discard, so I decided to make her this little video. I hope that she, or whoever else who needs it, finds it useful. This is what I do. I weigh my jar, I know how my jar weighs empty, and I subtract that amount to see how much I'm allowed to discard. I like to keep between 100 and 125 grams of starter in my jar. So in this video, I'm discarding 75 grams of starter into my discard jar that I keep in my refrigerator for when I'm ready to make discard recipes. I always write the weight of the empty jar on the bottom of my jar in Sharpie, that way I know exactly how much is in there with the starter. The amount that you want to feed your starter is really up to you. I found that the ratios given by Taylor, who's another creator on this app, really work for me. That's 90 grams of filtered water and 110 grams of flour. I make sure to stir really well when I add in the water because then I know that I'm not going to have any clumps or extra stuff on the sides of the jar. The flour that I'm going to use is an all-purpose unbleached flour. I zero out my scale again, measure to 110 grams, and then stir that in really well. It's important to look at the texture of your starter. I learned that the hard way. You don't want it to be too thin, and for me, I don't like it to be too thick. You can always add a little bit more water if you need to, or a little bit more flour, in order to get the texture that you want for your starter. I like using the offset spatula because I can scrape the sides really well as I'm stirring it up. I got this one from Tupperware. As you can see, my starter is pretty thick. Personally, I feel like it behaves better that way. I know that Britt was worried about having enough starter to bake with after feeding. As you can see, after feeding, I have approximately 320 grams of starter. Most of the recipes I use call for between 100 and 150 grams of starter, so I definitely will have enough, plus some discard to use for recipes in the future. Now, I'm definitely not an expert, and I'm still just learning, but this is the way I do it. To wrap it up, I just cover it with a coffee filter, mark a line on the jar, and keep an eye on the growth until I'm ready to make dough. I hope this helps.